Ask anyone why an insurance claim gets refused, and they will say the exclusions. It is the received wisdom. It is what everybody repeats, and on the policy I measure today, it is simply not where the weight of the document is. So rather than argue about it, I counted. 15 pages, 13,000 words, every article measured separately. What grants you cover, what takes it away, and what does neither. The answer is not the one I expected either, and the thing it points at is considerably more dangerous than an exclusion. What we are reading is a real policy form. It is public, it is blank, and it is the actual wording, not a summary of it, which matters, because every summary of an insurance policy is written by somebody with an opinion about the policy. Here is what the count says. 15 pages, 13,000 words, and every article measured. Property covered, 3,600 words. Every exclusion in the document added together, 1,256. The coverage section is 3 times the size of everything that takes coverage away. And here is the article nobody argues about. General conditions. Almost 6,000 words, 48% of the entire policy, bigger than the coverage and every exclusion combined. It is not about what is covered. It is about what you have to do and what happens when you do not. Because inside that section is a clause that does not deny your claim. It voids the policy, intentionally concealed or misrepresented any material fact or circumstance, and the policy is void, has no legal force or effect, cannot be renewed, before or after a loss. So read section 7 first. The exclusions tell you what was never covered, which is disappointing. The conditions tell you how to lose cover you actually had, which is worse. And to be clear, that's what one public form says on the pages shown. A real policy or a real claim is a question for someone qualified. So what is actually in there? Requirements in case of loss. The things you must do, and by when, after something has happened. Concealment or fraud and policy voidance. Suit against us, which is a deadline on you. Appraisal, which is what happens when you disagree about the amount. Reduction and reformation of coverage. Not one of those is about whether floods are covered. Every one of them is about you, your conduct, and your paperwork, and that is nearly half the document by weight. 22 lettered subsections, A through V, and I would guess most people who hold this policy could not name 3 of them. Not because they are careless, because the section is called General Conditions, which sounds like boilerplate, and boilerplate is precisely what you skip. And 2 of them have teeth. Requirements in case of loss. Within 60 days after the loss, send us a proof of loss, a sworn statement of what you are claiming. 60 days, on you, filed under a heading about requirements rather than anywhere near the word deadline. And then the sentence that ties the whole article together. You may not sue us to recover money under this policy unless you have complied with all the requirements of the policy. All of them. And notice the asymmetry in how those 2 clocks are written. The proof of loss is 60 days, which is a number you can GRIze. The notice is prompt, which is not a number at all. It is a word that gets decided later, by somebody else, after something has already gone wrong. An undefined deadline is not a generous one. It is a deadline you cannot prove you met. And this is the distinction the whole video turns on. An exclusion is a thing you never bought, irritating to discover, but the policy carries on. Avoidance clause is different in kind. You had the cover, and something you did took it away retrospectively. The wording here is not gentle about it. Is void, has no legal force or effect, cannot be renewed, cannot be replaced. Before or after a loss. That is not a claim being refused. That is the policy being treated as though it never existed. Which gives you a reading order, and it is almost the reverse of what people do. Start with the conditions, because that is where you can lose cover you actually have. Then the definitions, because they decide what every other word means. Then the exclusions, which is where everybody starts and which is the smallest part of the document. One last thing, and it is why I bothered counting rather than just asserting any of this. The version of this video I set out to make had a much better hook. The cover is 1 page, the exclusions are 11. It is a great line. It is also, on this document, the opposite of true, and I would have said it with complete confidence if I had not measured. And the first measurement was wrong too. The script matched each article heading wherever it first appeared. The policy happens to mention its own later articles on page 1. And the result was a ratio that came out backwards and looked entirely reasonable. It got caught by a check that refuses to continue if any article comes back under 20 words. So, read the conditions first, read the definitions second, and count things before you repeat them. Everything here is what one public form says on the pages shown. For an actual policy or an actual claim, ask someone qualified. One of these every day, on the paperwork nobody enjoys. Subscribe if that's useful to you.